Once again.
And it's because I have that authority. It doesn't mean I have to point out everybody and tell them to do the same. No. My job as a believer in that stage is to guide, to remind, to encourage. The word says when you speak, it should encourage. So it means when a person is depressed, it means when a person is sinning, there is a sort of encouragement to let them go back to let them go to the exile, because they will be in exile. They are suffering from the consequences of their doings. And who else had not done those things, huh? Maybe we don't need to fool ourselves, isn't it? We don't need to pretend like I didn't do nothing. What? What's the point? The point is period. Hello guys, this is Rochelle Rosenberg. I am in this bridge, and this is the city of Shopping. So this is where I used to walk whenever I have a lot of things in my mind, or in the summer I used to spend my time walking here. And I like being near the water, and I like seeing the sunset and the sunrise. Sometimes is, I think, on the other side. Well, does any one of you have ever think that there is likeness in our lives when it comes to Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy? My personal opinion is that it has a lot of likeness, because let's go to Genesis, for example. Genesis talks about the quote of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. So in the beginning, it was just a thought. It was just an idea, right? There was nothing. There was darkness. Nothing was in form. And so when it comes to that, all the things that God created, He already have it in His mind. There was already a plan, a motive on what would become or what would happen in the future. But there's also one thing that I would like to say about this, because in Genesis there's also a word that says that it had implemented many things in life. You know, it had created Adam, it had created Eve, it had created the mankind. So the word became flesh as well there. It became flesh. It created the heaven, the earth, the nature, all the fish, and all the animals that crawl on the land, swim in the sea, and the birds in the sky. Everything that God had spoken came to life. And then, because in the beginning was just the idea of creating something, then all of these things came to life. And then in Genesis, there are also things that was forbidden to do, right? There was a simple instruction not to consume a certain fruit. But then, because there's a consequences, and these are the things that killed life and created a different dimension between our soul and our human flesh, So in that case, I will say that people become disobedient, and in our disobedience, we are trying to go back to the idea that, well, I am made like this, Isn't it? It's funny that in our life, we always start from nothing. Isn't that funny that in life we always start empty and then suddenly come up something, and then we break some rules or some simple instructions we get, and we became disobedient, and we became a little bit evil here and a little bit evil there and a little bit wicked here and there, But then in Exodus, God had made a way for people to escape through Exodus, and He showed miracles to people that despite of your disobedience, despite of our disobedience, there's still a way for us to escape and to go into out of our comfort zone. Because once we were disobedient, we became comforted that everything is going well. Actually, the Israelites, they got used being a slave. They didn't like it, but they get used to it, you know. It's just like our life. We didn't like it sometimes, but we get used to it. And what else could we say, you know? And we always say it's because it's life. But anyway, that's the excuse of our life. We suffer things and we can escape them. We try to complain sometimes, or most of the time we complain that why are we suffering? Why do we have to go through certain people? Why do someone have to overrule us? And, you know, there are many why here and why there. And then comes Leviticus. Once you exited the sufferings of your life, God will make priesthood in you. There's a thing that God would tell you now, because you have suffered this, it's not a reward that you will become a priest, but now you knew what you were going through, and you knew the disobedience you went through. You knew that I have saved you from your sufferings. It's not a punishment, but it was the consequences of your disobedience, but I have made escape for you. And now, because you are in Leviticus, you are the priest, now I have to give you some rules to follow. That is only for you to follow, because you are a priest. You are the ambassador of my kingdom. That's what God is saying there, you know. So people forget that. Sometimes they earn money from that, you know. But Leviticus, it's a big opportunity to show how life had become a little bit lighter, a little bit better, because you know exactly what were the wrong things you've done, the disobedience. You become aware of who you were. But it doesn't mean that you have to point out somewhere and to forget who you were. No, you were forgiven, but it doesn't mean you have to point out someone, hey, you gotta wash yourself because you have sinned. It was not like that. Just like you were, they are as well suffering. And maybe they are still from their Genesis. Maybe they are still in their disobedience, you know. And maybe they are on the way to Exodus. And then comes the numbers. Then the Lord is starting to blessing you. The Lord is starting to counting. Where do you belong? Your identity. You know that there's a counting of identity, and the counting of the tribe, the counting of who and where to belong, and you know. This is the identity of your soul, the identity of who you truly are, not the idea of what you were in Exodus, you know. Because in Exodus you were a slave of the human flesh. You became, you suffered without knowing it. You suffered from the things that you enjoyed, and because from that stage, you came into the level of the Leviticus, and then now you are in the numbers. Now you know exactly who your family is. Now you know exactly who you is. Now you know exactly who you truly are in your nefesh, or in your soul, you know. But then there comes the Deuteronomy, right? Because first we have the Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers. You know, the Numbers, that's when God already tells you where you belong and what you should know about your identity, to have a ground, a foundation of who you are, to be not affected of what others say, to be not affected of what people say to you, what do they think you are, and who they think you are. Because according to their descriptions, you are something else, but you are not something else according to what God is telling you, you know? But then the Deuteronomy, now this is the very, very best part that I really like in the Bible. Because when we go to the Christian world, we just push someone to, hey, you sinned, hey, you did this wrong, hey, this is sin. But a person that is in Exodus or in Genesis, in disobedience, you know, not from the very, very beginning of Genesis, but a little bit closer to the Exodus, you know, there were disobedience, isn't it? There were disobedience. And if a person is in disobedience and you point out to them what they're doing wrong, they would not see it, but you can actually show them what is right instead of pointing out their weaknesses. And you know, many of us has gone through this kind of process through people, and many of us got actually hurt. I myself had been there, but I have managed my emotions to not overcome them, right? But I would like to share that when it comes to Deuteronomy. Now comes all the law of the disobedience that we once had experienced, and now we will have an understanding how we can continue the path of being the priest, because what we have to go back again to being there, to being the priest. Why were we given that kind of position? Why were we given that kind of opportunity? Yes, we were given that because we have to influence others, because we have to share our life to others. We don't have to sell CD to tell them, hey, this is Jesus, hey, this is whatever, you know. I am so much encouraged that even though I suffer for today, that even though I suffer for whatever things that's happening and going on in my life, I'm still inspired and hopeful, because I remember the gel. What is the gel? That's my quote, the gel. Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus. I always remember the gel. And then comes my ND, alright? Numbers and Deuteronomy. God reminds me the gel. That in the beginning I was made in the image. And though I have disobedience, He gave me an escape. He saved my life. He made my life complete by accepting that it was the consequences of my disobedience. He did not want, it's not the punishment. Because it was not the idolatry that I truly have to do. The idolatry I did not experience, you know, but I had the disobedience. And then comes the Leviticus. So after He gave me the escape and saved me and feeded me of those wandering years, of those suffering years, of those crying years, He still have given me the chance to live, the chance to blossom in my nefesh, in my soul. Isn't that wonderful? Have you ever thought of that? And then, it's because I have that authority, it doesn't mean I have to point out everybody and tell them to do the same. No. My job as a believer in that stage is to guide, to remind, to encourage. The word says when you speak, it should encourage. So it means when a person is depressed, it means when a person is sinning, there is a sort of encouragement to let them go back to let them go to the exile, because they will be in exile. They are they are suffering from the consequences of their doings. And who else had not done those things, huh? Maybe I have. We don't need to fool ourselves, isn't it? We don't need to pretend like I didn't do nothing. What? What's the point? The point is period. But the Deuteronomy is the implication of the rules that we have to follow. Maybe it's people would say we cannot follow the whole law. Of course we can't, because number one, I'm a Filipina. I'm not Jewish. This is the modern interpretation that I have, right? Number two, I can never be Jewish because my mom is not Jewish. But we grow up in that kind of upbringing. So VESHUA is for both. So what the hill is everybody fighting for, right? VESHUA is for one. VESHUA is for everyone. So guys, I encourage you that whatever you go through in life and whatever happens in your life, you have to be hopeful and remember the gel of life, Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus, and remember the ending, Numbers and Deuteronomy. If you think that Exodus was boring, then you must ponder a little bit. If you focus too much on Leviticus, then I would probably say that you are taking too much highly of the position, because you shouldn't be so much full of pride because you feel that VESHUA had given you the priesthood. No, be glad, be encouraged, because you have the opportunity to influence others. And for that matter, we can encourage more people to come to faith without provoking and intimidating. So everyone, this is just I suppose to have just a short speech, but it seems it became much more, and I would like to encourage you to ponder a little bit about the gel and end. All right, God bless you.